Hello, hello, hello. Today I'm talking with Nancy Beers. We talked about the similarities between music and programming, the impact of the different seasons in the woman's cycle, and the power of remote icebreaking questions. I'm Yves Hanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello, hello everyone, and hello with me I have Nancy. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to finally be here.
Yes, finally be here. And well, let's show also what here means. I want to bring on screen and my mouse doesn't want to collaborate. So you can see here where I am in Belgium, Ghent, Belgium, actually Drongen, not that far from Ghent. And let's ask Google to go where you are. And if I'm not mistaken, it's in Haarlem in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I'm a bit more to the east currently because that is where I live, and my office is in Halfweg, which is between Amsterdam and Haarlem,
Okay, well, the goal
next
was
to the.
not to help stalkers to give an exact location for all my guests.
Mhm.
Um, and on my side, it's Saturday. The mouse really doesn't want to work. On my side, it's Saturday at let's say 20 minutes after 3. What's the time on your side?
Well, we're in the same time zones because we're
Exactly.
nearly neighbors, right?
Exactly. Well, it's always interesting for because people sometimes always don't know, like, okay, which country where, and it's like, and sometimes it looks very close, but it's a different time zone, and then it's far away, but it's the same time zone. So that's why I think it's interesting to see a little bit. But
Absolutely.
indeed, Belgium, Netherlands, that is the same time zone. So welcome, Nancy. For the few
Thanks.
people that don't know you, who is Nancy? Before we jump into the questions, could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Well, I don't. I'm not in the illusion that everybody knows me. Luckily, my name is Nancy, and um, when asked to introduce myself, I say I play games for a living, um, and that usually raises a lot of questions. But basically, I've been active in IT for over 20 years. And for the last 7 years, I've been collecting serious games that I can use in a professional setting. Um, so last November, I decided after 10 years of Scrum mastering, being a product owner and an agile coach, to quit that altogether and fully focus on being a serious play expert. So yeah, my background educational wise is I studied conservatory uh, to become a music teacher. So I'm a music teacher,
Wow.
and I studied business informatics. So I'm also an IT geek. And the last study I did
That's
was
a really strange combination, would say. How did that happen
well, actually, if you look in IT, a lot of IT people are musicians because
Mhm.
music is very mathematical.
Oh, yeah.
So in my mind, IT and music are in the same box. So if I look at programming and composing music, it's the same creative process for me. So it's not that irrational that a lot of musicians also have a strong affinity with IT.
I agree with that, but I think that many people who are neither in one of these camps don't
Hmm.
always realize it, and that's why I was asking because I indeed, and also especially in the agile community, there's a lot of people who have are musicians. Some of them have been professional musicians, and
Absolutely.
some of them are still playing music. And at multiple conferences, we see people ad hoc playing music together. Even in the show here, there's a couple of people who used an instrument to introduce themselves.
Very cool.
Um, so, but did you notice when you started? Because I can imagine that when you're young, you don't always know these affinities that they're the same, or is that just a natural interest that you had?
Well, I think both are because I come from a very musical family. Everyone in my family made music all the time, and I think the first professional music lessons started when I was 9. But when I was around the age of 13, my brother gave me a computer, and I was like, okay, so you should learn how to program because that's a very useful skill for the future. So, and my brother's also very, I think he's even better at music than I am, but is in security auditing and things like that. So he's also in
Hmm.
IT eventually. Um, and so for him, music and IT already was something that came naturally together. Um, so it's yeah, I don't know exactly how that went, but for me, it always has been intertwined. Yeah.
Okay, but that's really cool. But it shows also indeed, like in your surroundings when you were young, there was already a connection between, or at least multiple people from your family have a similar
Yeah.
kind of thing. And that's yeah, I recognize that. I have a grandfather who was yeah, a conductor in multiple orchestras who was the head of what is it, the music school, or actually founded one music school, was the head of another music school at the same time. So yeah, there was a lot of things, and then my father completely went into IT, even before there was something like IT that was officially taught.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see a lot of interest in my family in both indeed. Uh, but not
Music is
many people
math.
have.
Yeah.
Music is math indeed, and I think there is. I think it was. Yeah, there's a couple of interesting books that I try to.
Escher Gödel-Bach is one of them.
That yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the a famous book that my father took years on holiday. He didn't read it in one single holiday because he said it's so interesting that I want to give it the time. And yeah, I remember for many, well, many, maybe 3 or 4 holidays that he took it with him because, of course, it's a thick book as well.
Hmm.
And have quite a couple of friends in the IT community that, yeah, are interested in that book as well. Um, but yeah, it's yeah. I'm trying to think. The book I want to think was your brain on music or something like that. It's also really an interesting one, thinking about
Hmm.
music and how we think, and actually a lot of that stuff. And even in the agile community, we had the late Dave Hussman, who was really famous on some of his talks, talking about music and making analogies for how to build a team with music groups. So indeed, a lot of interesting. So we already
And
jumped right into that.
yeah.
And so, yeah, currently you go, you play games now. If people are not in the agile community, sometimes they don't understand like games, like are you kindergarten? And so, so yeah, we play games with grown ups, but yeah, use it really to teach things. How did you run into that, or is that something that will come in one of the next questions?
Um. Well, let me start off with I don't play with children because they already know how to do it. Uh,
I like that one.
so
Grown
I
ups have
only
forgotten to play.
right. So that's why I love this business so much. Where it all started off was actually when I stumbled upon Play 14 with the number 14, Play 14. In a couple of weeks, we're talking beginning of March now. In a couple of weeks, they have their 10-year anniversary edition in Luxembourg, where it all started. Um, and a old colleague of mine, Koen van de Pas, told me, "Hey Nancy, there's this event about agile games and games that you can play in an agile setting. Are you interested in joining? It's in Amsterdam. That was the Dutch edition. It's in Amsterdam, so it's 2.5 days of playfulness." And I was like, sounds cool. So I went there and I stepped into the door and I looked around. And I was like, oh my goodness, there are more people like me. So these are my people. Oh my goodness.
And that was
uh,
literally when you arrived.
yeah, that was literally when I stepped in the door and I saw people playing and uh, I came across a quote by Floris Quote. Quote is his name. 1.5 weeks ago, and it said, playing is nature's way of learning.
Mm.
And I and I think that that is what happens when I went into that room and space and saw people playing around with all kinds of things. Um, and because I did a music teacher education, which is music is also playing, right? Theater is playing, and music is playing, sports is playing. To me, it was so natural that when you start playing, it's the best way to learn new things, and that can either be behavior, so in the soft skill of the word, uh, as well as deep technical things. That if I want to explain technical things to non-technical people, a game is the best way to get that message across.
Hmm.
Um, so that was my kickoff, so to speak, at a Play 14 conference, which I can highly recommend to anyone. I don't own stocks. I'm just a volunteer for them, and it's an NGO. But there are events all over Europe where you can go to and learn a lot of games. And I think in the last couple of years, I've collected around 160 games that I can play in a professional setting. And this can be about the GDPR law, for instance, the European law around privacy. This can be around dementia. This can be about neurodiversity in a team. This can be about there are numerous of themes that are so much easier to comprehend. What's happening here? Oh, sorry, my screen went black.
Hmm.
um, there are so many things that you can comprehend so much better if you play a game around it, if you gamify it.
I really like that. And just to show a little bit, you said many events. So this is
Yes,
something that I got from the map
cool.
from Play 14. Indeed,
Uh-huh.
it shows a little bit where things indeed are happening. It's not the first agile minded no games minded, sorry, serious game community, because we also
Hmm.
have tasty cupcakes that started, like, I think even years before that.
Oh,
There
absolutely.
was the Agile Games Google group that I've started in 2010, I think, or something like that, or 2008. So there was a lot of small little bit communities, but this one is really indeed, yeah, it boomed. It was the right thing at the right time. I know that I remember still Pierre. Nice,
Nice.
I think, yeah, nice,
Yeah.
indeed, who invited me to the first one. Unfortunately, so far, this is embarrassing because I've been playing a lot of agile games for years and I've never been to one. And most of the time, it's just really coincidence for a lot of other stuff. But yeah, I've been looking at that community. It's really a nice place where indeed lots of nice games have come out, and like you say, very serious. Yeah, serious games is really a good way of teaching. And yeah, even before Tasty Cupcakes, there was serious games existed, like probably like 10, 20, like 20, 30 years already. So
Yeah, yeah,
many
yeah.
many games have been used around the world. So yeah, it's been a very interesting way of teaching people. I've still noticed that sometimes business people like, "What are you playing games?" And so there is still stays some reluctance, but once they dare to jump in with both feet, then they actually learn a lot while having fun. Uh, it's really
Well, I
like how
think
you did it. Yeah, go ahead.
it takes courage. One of the Scrum values, right? It takes courage to actually start playing, and that is one of the things that I always tell any group that I teach about serious games and how to use that in an agile setting. Um, the re- the resistance of playing games 99% of the time is with the facilitator and not within the group that you're facilitating.
Hmm.
So the moment that you hesitate and think, okay, this is childish, this is something they probably won't play, that you give room for resistance,
Mhm.
um, because it's so very natural to play for people, for human beings, for mammals, actually. Uh, it's not that hard to get people to play.
Mhm. Well, yeah, sometimes when my father used to say when we play games together in agile conferences, it's to say it's like going into the sea. You have to get in to get wet, and you have to try it. And once you do it, you will. Yeah, you can still decide after if you like it or not. But you have to get in before you make that decision. You can't just sit from the side and say, "Okay, this is not for me" or whatever. Yeah, you can, but then it's a very strange decision because it's not based on facts. So you have to
Hmm.
get wet, and so jump in, and the more energy you put in, the more you get out of these kind of things. Yeah, and the example what you say, I've still recognize the first XP conference in France, where my father and I did the leadership game. People came up, every really completely full suited up with. Yeah, so really nicely dressed, and we were there with Legos of like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And like, yeah, I think 15 minutes later, jackets went off, ties went off, and people were, yeah, they really or even shirts went off, and really jumped into playing. And it was, yeah, it was really fun looking at that. um and it's like you say, we were looking at each other's like, we have this, we do this, we know that it's going to work. It's just a strange audience. Let's jump for that. And we didn't hold back, and the people neither. So it's indeed like you say, as a facilitator, you have to dare to jump as well. With
And
that.
I was keynote speaking last year at Dorskluk. That's the oldest European open source conference in Croatia,
Hmm.
in Zagreb. And I was invited there as a keynote speaker to talk about how gamification can make you a better software engineer.
Hmm.
Um, and the people in the organization told me up front, like, okay, there's one thing that you need to know. People from Croatia are shy and are probably not willing to join in on whatever you are going to play or going to do. So please don't feel bad if people are not cooperating or not actively engaged in what you are doing on the stage. And within 5 minutes, Eve, they were all up on their feet. And I was like, I don't know, is this
Okay.
a, a different room of Croatians or what happened here?
But
So
it's
yeah.
indeed jumping in and daring. It's I like that. So I'm glad that you added some extra stories about who is Nancy. Well, let's jump into that very first question. What
Mhm.
is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
Biggest part of my professional network is probably within the serious gaming or agile community because I've been working in agile for a long time. But I have been attending hacker events for numerous of years now. Um, so what a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm a hacker. Um,
And
and
what definition of a hacker for you?
oh,
If
hacking
you
and
can say that in less than a couple of
hacking
hours.
and playing are very similar. It's
Hmm.
about behavioral change. If you look at the social engineering aspect of things, I always said a good Scrum Master is a great social engineer. You have to know your ways around an organization and maybe sometimes find some alternative paths to get the organization where you want them to go. That has some very big parallels to social engineering, like me engaging in a social engineering uh, competition and going into a organization with a USB stick and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to print something. Can I please put this USB stick somewhere in a machine?" And by that, getting to the network. Um, Hackers are very playful people, curious, doing weird stuff, um, colorful people as well. Um, and most of them, I think, are the good guys and want to create a better world.
Mm. And
I
I really
think
like
what
that because it's, yeah, the people sometimes when we see hackers in the media or in movies, it's
they
like,
don't look
it's
like me.
exactly. They don't look like you, but it's also typically not for improving the world. It's more for bad. It's the bad version,
Hmm.
which I think in the people who would call themselves hackers would not call these people hackers.
No,
Neither would they call themselves hackers, I would say.
I
So yeah, I
mean
think that,
you're a Belgian. There have been hackers, which I don't call hackers, that hacked the Duvel brewery last week.
yes,
My
exactly,
goodness, these are not good hackers.
exactly.
Good hackers don't hack breweries, especially when your last name is Beers. I'm very against that.
Yeah, I think it's more like, yeah, crackers, or I don't know the
Yeah,
exact words that we
criminals
could.
is would be the
Yeah,
perfect name for them.
yeah, but it's digital kind of criminals, and it's using indeed hackers' skills, but use it for indeed completely opposite purposes, I would say. Um, so I think that's yeah, I think that's a good way to describe all of that. But that's not your crowd, I would say. You're more indeed like, how can I improve the world, and how can I get
Yeah.
in a playful way.
Yeah, a couple of old colleagues of mine had this initiative called Hackers Without Borders, and they
Mhm.
hacked hospitals and things like that, but with the white hats on. So with the ideal of uh, upping their security. So they made a report, sent it to the hospital, and said, "Hey, listen up. We tried to invade your systems. This is what happened. This is what you should do about it. And these are the steps to solve this, so that the bad guys are not coming in your systems, because we are here to make this world a better place, or at least a safer place as well." Yeah.
Yeah, and I think yeah, in Belgium, I'm trying to think about well, the most famous one, Inti de Keukelare, which it's indeed what we would call a white hat hacker, like to do that. But I remember from listening to him that it just, I think, just only a couple of years that we have the legal protection for these people, because before in Belgium, even if you did it for the right cause and you didn't sell it on the internet, you didn't share it anywhere except with your potential client, I would say,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
and that could get into jail. And so yeah, that's, I think it's important to have that kind of protection, and to be sure that this is happening for, yeah, because we need that. Let's face it, anyone who's working with IT knows that there are vulnerabilities, and yeah, we need to do. And yeah, pen testing is usually not enough. Sometimes it's good to have real good hackers to try to break in, and I think that's yeah, an important thing to happen there. So thanks for sharing, because I think
Yeah.
it's indeed, it's a nice thing. And so you talked about how that influenced you, or what people might not know it, but how did that influence you? Could you say a little bit about that part?
Oh, it it really opened up my world to a bunch of very creative. Okay, so let me start with one thing. One of the things that is my personal leadership vision is fuck coloring within the line. Sorry for f bombing your nice
Mhm,
podcast, but so I even have a tattoo of it. Oh, where's my camera? There it is.
mhm,
I mean, we all need some form of restrictions, but I love to have the freedom and the open-mindedness of being able to color outside the lines. And
mm,
just like the playful community at Play 14 was like, these are my people, that's the same in the hacker community for me. So a couple of weeks back, I went to an event called Hacker Hotel. Um, Crazy stuff just happens there because we can. And I
mhm,
think the playfulness in the hacker community is so very uh, omnipresent, and it's so much fun. And yeah, there's so much to learn, and these are all very curious people. Why are things the way they are? Why is it working like that? Why? And I yeah, I really like, it's already answering the question, what's one of your drives? My curiosity. I'm very curious about the world and what's happening around me, and like to have, by learning more, your worldview just gets broader. And I think um, that's what it brought me even more, that there are more people who share this curiosity for the world around them, and by that open their worldview a bit more.
I want to go back a little bit. What you said
Mhm.
earlier about, well, coloring beyond the lines. I actually wished I had like maybe kindergarten teachers that would allow that kind of stuff, because I think in early schools it's like, no, you have to learn it, and of course I understand why, because it's part of a skill that is interesting. But I have really bad eye-hand coordination, so I literally can't. I took lots of, I don't know, lessons or I don't know, therapy for learning to draw a circle. I still can't good do that. I still have lots of troubles there because of the eye-hand coordination. But I really remember when I was young, almost getting punished for not being able to color within the lines and stuff like that. And it's like, if that happens like as part of the curriculum, so we're actually teaching, and that's probably an example of where we, yeah, unlearning children the playfulness. Like, okay,
It's the
yeah,
number one TED talk on TED.com, right? It's How School Kills Creativity by Sir
exactly.
Ken Robinson. Yeah, I mean that's I can rewatch that talk over and over again because I really love it so much, and I also recognize it from uh, my educational career. Like, people didn't always understand, or I didn't understand the educational system even. Um,
Yeah, and I think,
because
well,
my mind
in
works in different ways as well.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I would say, and the way you're now, yeah, you're reteaching people things that they already knew before they were screwed by the creativity or the
Right?
lack of creativity in schools in
Yeah.
a way. But well, it's a business model for you, so in that sense, it might be good. But it's kind of sad that we need people like you to reteach us
But it's
that
very
stuff.
interesting that we it's also true for the agile community, right? I mean,
Mm.
in school we teach our children to perform on an individual level. So you get scored on how well you do at languages, geography, math, history, whatever. And then you go into the workplace and people say, "Okay, so you're part of a team now. Come." Well,
Yep,
you
and you
have.
have to collaborate and do well.
Like,
There's
what? What happened there? There's such a mismatch between how we get taught in school and being scored on the individual level, and then have to work in a team.
To be
And
fair, I've been asked, I think about 10 years ago, from my oldest school. So my school where I was learned IT and everything. I was called
Mhm,
in by one of my former teachers to, well, to help me teach about agility. And actually, they asked a lot of questions. Okay, how could we do that if you want to do more teamwork, more pairing? How could we score them? So they were really thinking about it. And it's hard, of course, because how do you do it? And we've seen, oh, that's even longer ago. Well, I don't know. It's maybe the same period that there was Scrum for school. I don't know how it's called. Educational
they do
Scrum. That
Scrum.
was it. They do Scrum indeed. That we're doing some of that things in school, and I think we need a lot of that because indeed we are taught. Yeah, collaborating in school is called cheating, and that's it's not the way I like it. We should learn and much more. I literally had my son this year, so he's doing business management in
Hmm.
for further education, and he had to do a business game. Now that was really interesting in a sense. You get a factory, and he gets some. So it's an online game. You have to play with some data, and based on that, the factory will be better or worse. And then you have to do that a few weeks in a row, and then you have to write a report about it, about what you're doing. And the
Hmm.
last You have to collaborate with a team where everybody gets a specific role and you learn something. So that last part is really good because you have to collaborate with 4 friends or 3 friends, I don't remember exactly, but a small group, 4 or 5 people, to do this. But the bad part about this is in the first part of the exercise, for example, for the report, you're not even allowed to take screenshots because they will score you 0 for it, because then it means you have been cheating. You're not allowed to talk with your colleagues, but some of these you will work together with in 3 4 weeks. So, like, okay,
Huh?
this is, I partly understand it in the sense that they want everybody to learn on their own and then collaborate. But if it's literally, it says in the document, I've seen it from my son showed me, like, he cannot discuss this with his friends. He's not allowed to talk about it before. And so how do you even know with who you want to collaborate? Because, like, yeah, how do you know which ones are good or bad? Because I think from what I understand, they had to kind of select themselves as a team. Okay, this is the first year, so he just, yeah, randomly selects some of the people he knows that starts to become friends. But because you never were allowed to talk about this exercise, it's silly, because you don't know if they have exactly the same skill as you or the opposite, or will you agree on a strategy or anything. So
Yeah,
very
and
strange.
it's also very old economic thinking, right? I have had some discussions about that lately as well. I mean, there are a lot of cool companies in the Netherlands, but also in Belgium, that do cool stuff with serious games. Like the Serious Gamers, they have a Belgian chapter now as well. Uh, really love what the Scrum facilitators in the Netherlands are doing, and there are more. Um, and the one thing that unites us is that we don't believe in competition because there's more than enough work for us all. Uh, why? uh, I have been asked, who is your competition or who are your competitors? I said, I don't have competitors. They're all
Mhm.
my friends. I mean,
It's
coming Wednesday.
interesting that this is an interesting game. I need to think. It's probably also about 10 years ago. I was at an agile conference playing a game, and the way it was set up was kind of, it was like, okay, you have your own cards and you have to, at some point, you have to collaborate. And it was like in the first 5 minutes after the game was explained, I put all my cards on the table and I shared my situation. And all of a sudden, my friends started doing the same thing. And the facilitator looked at me like, "What are you doing?" It's like, collaborating. The game is that we as a team do something good and maybe beat others. And it's like, okay, I didn't even think about it. It was not real
I'm bending
strategy.
the rules here.
I was like, "Phew." He didn't. This person didn't say I was not allowed to do that. And I had a real interesting discussion with him. He's like, yeah, it was not allowed, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I didn't even talk or think about it, because in his mind, it was so natural that people would not show their current
Oh
situation.
wow. Yeah, but
And
that's the whole
yeah.
restriction thinking, and I think it limits you, and it's another cool example. I was at Play 14 again in München last year, at a T-Mobile joint. Very cool place. And they had a multi-ball wall there. That's a big wall where they project all kinds of serious games, and you have to throw balls at the wall. I'm a handball player. That's my favorite game. So I'm a pretty good thrower. Um, and there was this puzzle game. It was a math game basically. So you got some easy mathematical questions, and there were two teams on one big screen, and you had to throw the ball on the right answer of some of the sums that were shown there, and by that you fueled a rocket that would go to the moon or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
So I was like teaming up with a partner, and there were two guys on the other side, and I was just throwing on the other side of the screen at the wrong answers. So I told my teammate, I said, "You throw on our right answers, and I will throw on their wrong answers." And this facilitator said, "This game has been here for 4 years, and I've never seen anyone do this." And I was like, "Yeah, but you didn't tell me that I wasn't able to throw there."
Yeah, and similar kind of things were in games that, or in things like, okay, walk to the other table, see what their solutions is, and maybe get
Yeah.
inspired. And so, like, are we allowed to do that? I didn't tell you you're not allowed to do so. Did it occur to, that's one of my favorite questions with some workshop is like, did it occur to you to go to the other table and ask for help, or did it, yeah, to see some of that? And it, because in the end the goal is for everybody to learn. The goal is not to win or whatever, and there is a prize. The prize is actually the learning part. So that's so
Have you
yeah.
ever played the Change game, Eve, or I think it's Tiago's. I'm not quite sure. I,
I'm not
there's
sure.
a. I talked about it in the podcast of Jolly and Kia, the Serious
We'll
Gamer
link to that
podcast.
one.
And there's also a written explanation on my blog. And
Mhm,
the change game, you play in a couple of rounds. You ask people to change things about themselves, and
mhm,
usually I will go. I will skip the whole example because people can read and listen to it. But it takes people 3 rounds to start learning from people next to them. They are so focused on themselves before they start opening up their view and think, okay, maybe if I look at the person next to me, I come up with new ideas to change things about myself. Uh,
I really like that. It's yeah. I think, and indeed, children are so good at that kind of
oh
stuff.
yes,
They just copy each other. They or they start helping each other. Or yeah, it's like, yeah. I really like that kind, and that's indeed, for me, all nice examples of hacking and ways that we deal with the world in the hacker space. So thanks for sharing all of these. That's
yeah.
really wonderful. Let's move to that second question. That if you had not been doing what you've been doing now, what would have become of you?
I thought about this question already, and I was like, let's see where the conversation goes and what would happen. I would probably be on a stage, uh,
Mm.
because I really was born for the stage. And
And is that as a young girl
yeah,
that you were also on stage?
I
Okay.
brought a picture.
Mhm, mhm.
Oh, little Nancy.
You can see the twinkles in your eyes already. Like,
Well, I was 4 at this in this picture, and uh, there's a pretty famous Dutch comedian called Brigitte Kaandorp, and
mhm,
I really really adored her as a little child already. Uh, and when I was 4 years old, I asked my mom, okay, what she is doing, what's that called? And she said, well, that's um, in English, the best description is probably stand-up comedy or
mhm,
comedian. Um, in Dutch, we have kleinkunst, which is more sophisticated than just comedy, I think, but that's just a chauvinistic Dutch thing, I guess.
it's a
But
term known in Belgium as well, and I think it's, well, it makes me think much more of singing than
it's
purely the
more,
comedian part. There's a lot of it around it, I think.
yeah.
Indeed.
But for the sake of this story, let's just call it a comedian. I was like, I want to be that when I grow up. Uh, and I kept that idea from the age of 4 to the age of 17, and then I auditioned for Kleinkunst Academy, which is the school for comedians, basically. And after 3 audition rounds, I failed. I was like, oh my god, what am I going
What
to
are
do in
you
my life
doing
now?
now?
My childhood dream. Um, thing is, eventually now I am on stages and I am talking about passionate things and touchy uh, 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 personal subjects and anything in between, and making people laugh as well. So basically, I'm not that far off from the childhood dream. But if I was weren't active in IT, it would probably be something in the arts.
But your life would be less. Your life is maybe less tough than Brigitte her life. Just paraphrasing her famous song that she has
Good.
about the
Yes.
hard life she had.
Yeah. Probably. She lives in Haarlem as well, so I'm
Okay, I
already.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah.
I'll try to link.
That
I need to find that because I
Ik
really
heb een
like.
heel zwaar leven. Yes,
Yes,
for
exactly. That's
Dutch listeners, yeah, it's lovely. But she has also very um, well thought through, lovely songs about her daughter growing up, and there are so many. She's a true artist. I really love her. Still,
mm.
still, yeah.
And how do you
Um,
get to know her? Because, like you say, she lives in your city.
I
Is
don't
that
know her
some?
personally.
It's not that you because you were living in the same city that you run into her with your parents, or is it yeah
That's
just
that's no, no, no. I live in Haarlem now for I guess 7 years or so, and I grew up in a little town way up north. So no, I never met her in
but
person.
it's
Well,
the universe taking you to the same place that she's living. So
I
maybe
guess so. I guess so. Yeah, I'm very aspiritual, so I guess it's just it was. I used to live in The Hague, and then I wanted to move closer to my mom. That was the reason that I moved up to Haarlem, basically. Yeah, and Haarlem is a lovely city because it has the charm of Amsterdam, but not the tourism. So
yeah, I can get that. I can
anyone
get that.
visiting the Netherlands anytime soon, if you are based in Amsterdam, take the train for 15 minutes and go to Haarlem because Haarlem is very cool.
It's that's really cool advice. I think.
Yeah,
Um,
and visit me. Call me. Let me know if you're there. Yeah,
Well, we'll talk about how to contact you at the end, of course.
sure.
But let's go. So you talked about how that could have been influenced you, like trying to go on a stage. Um, so what were your reactions with yourself when you failed? Like can imagine that if that has been a childhood dream, how did that? Yeah, how did that came to you?
At first, it was pure panic because I really, really. I mean, you're 17. What do you?
What
It's
do you know about
crazy.
life?
Right. It's crazy that you have to know what the rest of your future is at 17 already, and sometimes even younger in the Netherlands as well. If they're from 14 or 13, they have to already know what kind of subjects you choose for your future career. I mean, for God's sakes, I know people who are 50 and still don't know what they want to be when they grow up.
So do I.
Right? So
Exactly. It's like, well, like you say, you just changed careers in a sense. Well, you moved your career in a different path, and that's probably not something you even thought about focusing on that like 5 years ago or something like that. Like I can imagine.
no, it's really seizing opportunity when they stare you in the face.
Mm.
Um, uh, because I've always been an open source hippie because the first computer I got was actually not a Windows machine but open source. So my brother
Oh,
raised me using Linux and things like that. So I always have been active in open source communities as well. Drupal, basically for a long time, which is
invented in Belgium.
Belgium. Yeah, which is from Belgium. Yeah. So I've been active in that community. Open Office. I did Open Office implementations at the harbor of Antwerp, actually. So we
Mm.
gave a lot of training there on Open Office. So I did a lot of different things in open source, and I was heading somewhere with this conversation, but now my ADHD got in the way, I guess.
So
What
the
was the
question was
question
how
again?
what yeah was when you were stuck at 17 like you can't do what was your dream so
Oh,
that
okay.
interaction there
Thank
that
you.
that
Yeah. So when I was done with the whole business informatics, I started working at a tiny open source uh, consultancy firm, and they did open source voice over IP with Asterisk at the time, open source CRM, CMS, things, all things like that. Um, I'm presuming you're having an IT crowd for viewers, right?
There are a lot of them, I would assume.
Okay, content management system, customer relationship management. Voice over IP is calling over the internet. Okay, just a small background.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was a speaker already at the biggest fair in the Netherlands, in the Jaarbeurs in Utrecht, in the center of Holland, talking about open source, open content, and how that works in a business setting, and how you can make money out of open source software without licensing and things like that. And then they were looking for someone who could actually organize the open source conferences at their company. Uh, so they
Mhm.
asked me, okay, so you have a big network in open source. Do you know someone who might be able to do that? And I was like, yeah, me.
They
So
didn't see that coming.
so then I organized around 70 events about open source, open content, open anything for the Ministry of Economics in the Netherlands. So that was very cool. And every time, well, open source always have been the red thread throughout my career, and even what I'm doing right now with my Happy Game Changers. Anytime I create a game, I don't create that many games myself because it's a different profession. But when I create a game, it's always Creative Commons. It's always free for anyone to use, because I create games because I want to have them played and not to keep for myself and uh, um, charge a license fee for it or something. And that is something, for instance, that is something that I have a little bit of against Lego Serious Play. It's very expensive to become a Lego Serious Play professional.
And
Um,
you have to follow all the rules and buy the material with them, so it's yeah.
I love Lego Serious Play. Let's be very clear on that department. But I think it's against my personal opinions about knowledge should be free, and everything should be available to anyone, especially when it's about knowledge.
Yeah,
So
I recognize a lot of that. That's yeah, all the games I've played were free, except indeed for League of Serious Play. And I've tried to do the same thing. I had on and off with, because my own games, I when everybody that plays my games, I give the manuals for free. But I have the manuals online, which I charge money for. But everybody who has played it get it for free and gets updates for free as well. It's like trying to find the balance, and sometimes I say, okay, I just put it out open. But I've seen people that have not been at games appreciate somehow the games more if they have to pay a little bit for it, and that's kind of,
yeah,
how do I want it? How do I deal with it? And well, I'm really bad writer, and I'm making spelling mistakes and everything. So I use the money I get to actually pay editors to make it better again. So
oh, very cool. Yeah, I'm not against asking money for games. I mean, if you have printing costs and costs to send it somewhere, or perfectly fine, of course. But well, if you take Management 3.0 as an example,
Mhm.
all the games are available for downloads, and you can buy a version of it to use in workshops. I use the moving motivators, for instance, a lot in my sessions that I do with teams. Uh, so I can download it and print it myself. You have
This
them?
I have them. Or where is my camera? Here is my
Oh, there's
camera.
your
So
camera. Yeah, it's lovely, right?
you have to. So yeah, that's I have it indeed available at my desk, because I like these as well. And indeed, I think Jürgen, when he started it, is trying to find the right balance, because of course that's where he makes his money with, and at the
Yep,
same time you can download and get them. And I think it's a big part of the success is that a lot of
absolutely.
these things are for free.
I mean, we're
Um,
talking about him and his products right now, right? So
Exactly, and I've yeah, just like the
kudos.
last couple of days, the kudos. I was thinking the kudo box. I've been using it for many years, both on paper as remote. I'm working with remote teams these days, and I think just last weekend I sent out more than 15 kudos to people all around the world, because I thought, yeah, and this is for free, and it gives so much joy. And then I get replies from people using the same thing, and it's like, okay, this is spreading. And then people ask, okay, how could you do it on paper? Well, okay, you can yeah. And that, I think that's indeed a little bit how I really like to do that work, and how we spread these things.
Yeah.
I want to move to the next question. What do you consider your biggest challenge, and why is it a good thing for you? And of course, the biggest challenge that you want to share online.
Of course. Um, I think it's balancing between understimulation and overwhelm.
Hmm.
That is something that I keep struggling with throughout my life, because I like my life to be full of experiences and things like that. So I travel a lot. I do a lot of crazy things. I tend to start new projects very frequently because I can. Um, and I can be a little bit over optimistic about time,
Hmm.
like a lot of people in our profession, I think. And
No,
then
no.
and then it's like, uh, on a Saturday, I can get paralyzed, sitting on the couch, paralyzed, like, oh my god, there's so much stuff going on, and I don't know where to start.
Hmm.
And I just have to write, listen. If I'm on the sofa with my notebook, writing, my boyfriend already knows. Oh my goodness, it's that time a year
It's
again.
again too
So
much.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah. But under stimulation, I mean, I'm one of the few people who is a truly 100% extrovert. And Corona times were absolute hell for me because I was so understimulated. I couldn't play my favorite sport, which is my meditation. Team handball is my meditation. I couldn't go to conferences. I couldn't talk. And of course, I did a lot of stuff online. So we did a Play 14 24-hour edition where I played from with people from Australia in the morning till people in Mexico at night, and
Hmm.
it was great fun. And I truly uh, tried everything out that I could on Zoom, and played around with all the toolings to at least be in contact with other people. Um, but I really had a challenge there of getting understimulated. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that can
I
paralyze me
can.
as well. So that's
So it's
that's my,
finding that right balance. I think. Yeah, indeed.
yeah.
That's a nice example.
And how
Yeah.
it helps me. That was the follow up question. I wrote it down because I thought this is a good thing. Um, um, it's it throws me back every time, especially when I get overwhelmed by all the things that I'm doing, uh, to what I love best. So it brings me back to uh, what's my essence. What is what I truly want to do. Every year I do a reflection exercise that's called the Year Compass. It's highly recommended for anybody. And my word of this year is easy. Uh, if working with someone, or if something that I'm doing or something that I'm doesn't go with ease or doesn't feel easy to me, I probably shouldn't do it. And that
Okay.
helps me a lot to focus on the stuff and the customers and the people I want to work with, way easier. Um, because maybe you recognize that as well. Sometimes you try to cooperate with someone, and then somehow it just doesn't really flow. It doesn't
Hmm.
really tick. It doesn't really work out. um, Whenever I find myself in an overwhelming situation, I'm like, okay, what are the things that are not coming easy to me, and stop that, just stop that and say no to that.
I really like that. It's yeah. I recognize that also myself. That well, in the community, we a lot of people, we know each other, and then sometimes you try out a game or workshop with someone because you like their game, you like whatever, and then you try something up, and it already happened to a few times with me. But either I was hired by some of these people, or I hired one of these, or I tried to create a game with them. It's like, oh, it's not flowing. And depending on how it is, but I've learned that indeed I have to listen much more better to my own body, because somehow I feel it rather early, even if it's
Hmm.
someone I think that a lot of things happen and flowing, and then you try to work together, and you're like, okay, that's somehow the energy is different.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing, and it could be because of I'm in a certain space in my life, and the other person is somewhere else. It doesn't really matter, but it helped me to stop early at some point, to say, okay, maybe this is for whatever reason not working. Much better than indeed trying for years to, and feel miserable about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think that is important. The easy part. Easy doesn't always mean, that everything is simple, and sometimes
No,
there
no, no,
might
no.
still be hard parts. But yeah, I understand it's about the flow of energy and some of that, or that's at least that's how I understood it.
Things that come easy to me. Like for
Exactly.
instance, I was at this event last Tuesday, and one of the speakers fell ill,
Hmm.
and there was a room with 200 entrepreneurs there, and the chair of the day asked to the room, okay, so we one of the speakers was not able to make it today. Is there anyone who wants to take that slot? And I didn't hesitate. It was like, yes, me. And a couple of hours later, I was on the stage. To me, that felt easy because I'm a speaker. I'm born for the stage, so that's my mindset. So whenever a stage is presented to me, I was like, yes,
Go
woohoo!
ahead.
And there were other people in the room like, wow, you. I mean, that's so such a bold move. I was like, yeah, because it's easy for me, it doesn't mean that it's easy for other people.
But I recognize that yeah, I've been promoting to. I had a friend who was kind of, well, disappointed is maybe the wrong idea, but she had a great workshop. It wasn't selected for a conference, and I had a hinge, and I said, you know what, take your material with you. You never know if you can explain it even in the evening or whatever. Speaker drops out, and the organizers asked me, hey, do you know one? I was like, yeah, you need to talk to Yoke,
Oh
and she was
wow!
there with all her material. It's like, woo,
Yes.
and, and that actually launched her more in the community. I think people knew her
Oh,
already, but that actually launched her even more, and yeah, I think after that gave her much
what's her
more
name?
confidence. Joke van der Malen, who's someone who's in Ghent, and yeah, I've
Go
seen the
Yoke.
workshop giving. Yeah, it was just wonderful, and
Yeah.
it for me it's indeed something like, and I've done it myself now a couple of times at conferences when I hear indeed, oh, there's a speaker can't make it or whatever. Um, I literally had it once that I was preparing for another conference, and so I worked in the weekend on something, and then the
Yeah.
next week I had a conference, and we're like, oh, I was doing something, but yeah, there was another room. It's like, okay, I have something, it's not ready yet, but I'll do a tryout. And it gave me really good feedback, and yeah, there was like, okay, this looks just like it's finished. Well, did you just invent that? No, it's actually, yes, I worked on it, but it's not ready yet. And so it helps us a lot if we dare to jump into these kind of
Yeah.
things. um so I think that's, yeah,
But
that's
what I
really.
also particularly like, Eve, is that you show to be a great male ally by pointing out, go to her. So thanks for
Yeah,
that as well.
it was for me so logical, because I was, well, we were working at the same company. I wasn't actually working with the team she was working with,
Hmm.
but we collaborated, or we talked a lot together, and I found that really important. That's for me. It's also, well, here on the show I try to have more than 50% women, but I've also done it in other things. Like, okay, either today, if I'm invited to a conference, I will either bring my kids, because that's another thing. I try to go on stage with them if they're interested, or I will ask the organizers, can you connect me to a local person that might be interested in the same topic, and then we update. Either if I have something, we'll collaborate on it together to make it better, or if I have an idea and nothing yet, I'll really work on that together, and it makes my life so much richer. It puts someone else on stage, and it's and these days I'm always asking for a female person, because then the balance, at least me as a male, I don't unbalance the conference. So I'm trying to say at least it stays the same. It's not easy, because it's a lot harder to find these people, and someone's like, why are you asking particularly? It's like, yeah, I think it's normal. We have to, indeed, like you say, we have to boost other people, and people that not always get these chances. And yeah, I can honestly say these presentations have been way better than if I would have done it myself. So it's not just oh, I want to do a good job. As so being the nice man, it's really, it's making everybody's life better. I think that is important to mention as well,
Thank
because
you.
yeah, that's yeah, for
Really,
me
really
it
from the bottom of my heart. Yeah.
it's I think, well, I've loved pair presentations since really since I'm very young. When I've done things with my father, I've done things with my partner. Now I done things with my two children, and yeah, I've learned so much by pairing up. The best presentations were always with two people. So I'm like, okay, I should find ways, but I don't want always to do it with the same people. This is not because, yeah, this didn't work out with a certain person. I have to make sure, because before I said sometimes it doesn't work out, but it's really like I want to learn more people and help out others. And in the case from Yoke, that I hadn't even nothing to do with it. I just knew she had great materials, like go on stage and do this. So yeah, and it helped also. Other people were like, okay, otherwise there would have been a slot not available, and yeah, people would have less content. And this was really great content. And she was actually selected, if I remember correctly, she was selected as one of the best. So the mini version of XP Days was her presentation was in there as well, which was not
Oh,
officially on the program. So yeah, that's kind
very
of nice.
cool.
Let's move to the next one. And this one, you already talked a little bit about it. What drives you? Is there still something you want to add to that answer, or do you think we can move on? Or
I think curiosity and r- really the drive to leave this place in a better way than I found it. Um,
the
uh,
scouting rule?
yeah, although scouting is not is yeah, there's
People know it
two
from
things.
there, but
Absolutely, yeah. Well, for instance, in my free time, I'm also volunteering for the Special Olympics, and the Special Olympics
wow.
is most people know the Paralympics. That's for
Mhm.
people with physical disabilities, and the Special Olympics for people with mental disabilities. So that can be either Down syndrome or heavily autistic or something not quite all right. Um, and I'm a technical delegate in the Netherlands for team handball. And I'm chasing my dream to become Olympic referee, the next one,
Wow. For the Special
because
Olympics, or for the full Olympics, or
for the Special
for the
Olympics,
Special Olympics?
yes.
Yeah.
Uh, and why it moves me so much to be a volunteer. I've been to the World Games last summer in Berlin,
Mhm.
um, because it's about everybody should be everybody is worth it, and everybody should be able to belong. Uh, and the interesting thing there was the Special Olympics were in Berlin in the Olympic Stadium there. There were
Mhm.
7,000 athletes with a mental problem or disability. I mean, there's a better English term for it, but I forgot about it. Sorry, I'm not native, so but okay. Um, but I was there with the opening ceremony in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin. The last games there was in the year 36. These were the Olympics from Hitler.
Hmm.
And now, so many years later, the first Olympics after that one was the Special Olympics. So there were people there in the stadium that Hitler didn't want there in 36. And that was such a goosebump moment. Like, everybody belongs, everybody is important, everybody has something to bring, and it gives people so much self-worth and self-esteem to be a part of something this cool and this big, and to be a part of a team, to be coming out for their country, to be proud. Also, parents being proud at their kids who are winning gold medals, and while probably when they just were born, uh, it's very
People
hard.
told them, yeah, and well, first of all, you have to deal with, you have to accept yourself as a parent,
Hmm.
and then indeed people get a lot of remarks about that, and teach raising these children is hard. I
Yeah.
mean, my partner is working with in a living group with people who have severe autism,
Hmm.
typically have low IQ and at least one other disability. Yeah, and I think many of the parents of the children there have a hard time accepting that they might not even be the best to raise their children, because this is really hard. And especially and these are really severe cases, so yeah, it's really hard. Many marriages break up because they want to deal
I
with in
can
a different
imagine.
way. And so yeah, it's these are, it's really hard to do that. And I can imagine that if you have such a child when it's born, you have no idea how severe it will end up and how hard your life will be. But if
Yeah.
then you can have such an event so many years later, seeing that your child is celebrated in a way, I would say, with gold medals and other things.
Absolutely.
So that's and
Yeah.
what drew you into that, into these organizations? Is that because of the sports that you were doing, or was
Yeah.
there something else?
Yeah. uh, I've been playing team handball for 38 years now. I am 42, so you can do the math. um,
Wow.
so I
How
really
do you
started.
start at such a young age? I mean, you can hardly see over the net.
No, that's volleyball. Team handball is with just
Ah,
with
handball.
girls.
It's yeah, yeah. Of course. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I mixed
That's
them up.
okay.
But still, this is. It's incredible that when you do this at this young age, is that the normal size? When a young age, is that the normal size field, or is that smaller?
No, it's smaller. It's a half field from the adults. Yeah. So it's a
Right.
smaller
So
field,
and that.
smaller goals as well. Yeah.
Ah, yeah, okay. Because yeah, I can imagine that also for the goalkeepers and everything. It's well, the people trying to, but yeah, still, it's an amazing career, because I've looked at, I've been playing table tennis when I was young, and when I look back now at when I was at university, I kind of stopped, and I don't even think it was a conscious decision. Somehow a couple of years later, I realized, oh, I actually stopped playing. Well, before I was playing like 4 or 5 times a week, and
Why?
somehow, like, I don't know, I literally don't know. I've been wondering. Okay, my life moved in different kind of things, but I stayed in the same town, so I could have just kept on playing, and somehow I didn't, and it was, yeah. I literally don't know what stopped that.
If you have a small affinity with the target audience I was just talking about, maybe in your surroundings in Ghent somewhere they have a table tennis G team, G sports, it's gehandicapte
Hmm.
sport. Because I've seen a lot of table tennis in Berlin. Uh, it's it's enriches your life and your heart. It's for me it's oxygen. Uh, Playing sport, and I referee them as well. So when I, but the thing is, when I step onto the handball field with these athletes, uh, they are handball players to me. So
Right.
I
You're
see team
not.
handball
Uh,
players. I don't see that person with Down and that person with this or that or whatever. These are team handball players.
Yeah, and I think
Period.
that's a little bit the thing. I've been coaching Code Dojo, so young children to teach how to develop. And I
Mm.
think indeed you at first it might be they might still be a little bit children trying to learn, but at some point they're like really like coding and hacking and asking questions about wanting to solve stuff. And then at some point there is it doesn't matter if you're 12, 16, or 25, or even 55. You're into that coding mindset and you want to fix something, and you're yeah. And well, the good thing is that these children are typically better at asking for help than the 51 year olds, because they want to prove that they know everything and are smart. And
Mhm.
children still think it's more the opposite. We need sometimes to tell them, like, okay, you can watch, you can look and try a little bit, because sometimes me as a coach, I might also not know. And I've seen that is that they ask a question, I'm like, okay, I don't know, let's look a little bit. And when they see me clicking, not knowing, they're like, oh, okay, you just, well, okay, I'll figure it out and I'll try myself.
Does this
And
have a parallel to failing and playing? Because maybe we are more acceptant for children to fail than for adults to fail. And playing is a safe way to fail at things. And what you
well, and
describe is that these children
it
are not scared to fail.
they're not scared to fail, but I also see that they're a lot of them are taught already from school that if you don't know, you have to ask the teacher and ask for
Mm,
help, and not so much looking for yourself. And so one of the guidelines that we had in Ghent is like, as a Go to Dojo coach, we try not to click on the mouse and use the keyboard, and ask to just tell them where to click themselves.
mhm.
Not always possible. It's hard, and sometimes they kind of almost force you the keyboard in your hands. But if
Yeah,
we get there, I usually see it much better working. And to be fully fair, well, and I don't want to stereotype, it's a risk, but I see that the teachers are the hardest persons to work in that kind of setting, because they're so much used to indeed and completely explain and almost take over. Where the philosophy of Code Dojo, especially in Ghent, but I think it's in the whole Belgium and maybe worldwide, it's like, okay, we want to indeed have children to try to learn and experiment and do stuff, and not that the goal is also not to make perfect programmers or about it. It's really like, let them explore what it is, and let them have fun doing
yeah,
that. It's not a development course in that kind of sense. And sometimes parents and children have a hard time because they prefer to be taught. It's a, yeah, more philosophical way of looking at these things.
yeah.
But yeah, children have sometimes a hard time with that. But once they see the coach is also failing, is maybe the wrong word, or not knowing the answer by heart, I see them much more jumping in. I think that's for sure.
I
So.
hear a parallel at a thing that I saw a couple of weeks back. There's now an app, and it horrified me, to be honest. There's an app where you can point your camera of your phone on a big box of Lego, and then you
Oh
make a
yeah, and
picture
it tells you what you can make.
what you can make. And I was like, what? You're taking the complete essence out of playing with Lego. And I also spoke to people who were like, oh, but that's amazing. Now I finally know what to build.
Well, the
So
goal is.
it's I don't know if it's I'm a bit I'm not too fond of management bullshit bingo like growth mindset and things like that, but I do think that's it. This is a set mindset, right? If you want to make a picture of your box of Lego to know what to build,
Mhm.
it just blew my mind. I was like, seriously, are people using this?
It's
Okay,
yeah, I
interesting.
can. It's well, it might be an inspiration, but yeah, it's limiting at many kind of things, and it's I would say, yeah. Um,
It's again the coloring within the lines thing.
Exactly. It's like it's but I can
Box,
imagine that there is a market for it and that people really like it, but that's yeah, it's the opposite of what you want to do. For me the nicest thing to do with Lego was not build what's in the box, but build something completely different.
right?
And combine it with, I don't know, Barbies and Action Mans and Playmobil and whatever, and like have and dinosaurs probably and all kind of other stuff. That was the fun part. That is combining it in multiple kind of ways. So yeah, I hope that at least there is an Easter egg in it, that it gives you something that is not possible to build, and then you have to figure it out
And then you
yourself.
have to figure out how to fix it. Yeah. Oh, that would be nice. Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the next question. What is your biggest achievement so far? And before we want to go there, I want to ask the question, because basically this is your moment to brag. Is it easy for Nancy Beers to brag?
Yes.
Hmm.
I had to learn it, but yeah, I get
She
better
says it
at it.
is. Okay, so what is your biggest achievement?
Uh, for now, it feels like it's building a successful business within 5 years with its own very big serious play event called Play in Business. Uh, it was a dream in the middle of Corona times. I was like, okay, so I want to organize an event where I want to go to myself
Hmm.
to show for now people in the Netherlands, at least businesses in the Netherlands, what you can do with serious play within and serious games within companies. Uh, because there's nothing like that right now. It's not there yet. There are events around esports and VR gamification, all digital things, but there wasn't an event about physical gaming, uh, uh, a business event, I might add. Of course, there's the Play 14 and Play for Agile, and there are a lot of events like that out there, but there was nothing there yet for the business side of things. Uh, I started out, the first edition was in September 2020, so that was just when the world opened up a little bit for a small window of time, and it wasn't the first in-person event since Corona, so people really said you are absolutely bonkers that you are going to organize an in-person event, and I thought I really want to do this. Uh, so I did, and it was great fun. And 70 people were there, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this again, but not by myself. So my sister joined in. My sister worked as a team lead in healthcare because she's a
Hmm.
nurse. And when she went to my event, she was like, "Oh, but Nancy, this is what the healthcare in the Netherlands needs. We need more playfulness. We need to get away from terminal seriousness." Uh, so 3 months after she visited my event, she quit her job and she founded her own company, Play with Care, Speel met Zorg.
Wow.
And she helped me.
And your parents still talk to you that you did that?
Unfortunately, my mom has been on each and every event, so
Wow.
she's always there.
So it's really a family event.
It's really a family event, and my dad unfortunately passed away almost 6 years ago,
Mhm.
but he's still there with us because, well, the thing is, my dad placed playgrounds, so all over the Netherlands
Oh,
for 30 years. So children today are
so
playing on my dad's work.
so playing has been in your family for a long time.
So it's very logical, but the so I started this, and then I was like, okay, but my dream event would be, I want this event to be at Geofort, which is an old fort. What's that called in English? Fort, fortress, I guess.
Fortress, yeah, yeah.
Fortress, and that's the best child's museum worldwide.
I was
Uh,
thinking it's a museum, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's a museum. And so I want that, and I want Erik Scherder, who is the most famous Dutch clinical neuropsychologist. Uh, and I want him to talk about how playing and playfulness is good for your brain, because I really like to have the scientific approach to why playing is good for you and good for your business. And 3 years later, that dream came true. So I was there, standing there. I did the opening talk, and I said, "Okay, so a couple of years ago, this was my dream. I wanted Geoffort, I wanted Erik Scherder, I wanted 250 people, and
Mhm.
I wanted to create this. So today, welcome in my dream."
Wow,
Uh, and that was truly a goosebump moment for me. So.
I can
Uh,
imagine. That's really, yeah.
That was really. And now for the next edition, that's in June, we have André Kuipers, which is the Dutch astronaut. And he's going to talk about how playing is actually rocket science. So I'm
Wow.
really, really looking forward to that one. Yeah. So, and this is an event that wasn't there yet, and now it is. And people are there are numerous people, at least 20 people who already bought their tickets for this fourth edition, and they have been there every single time. And it's like, we're there because this is an amazing event, and I really want to be there. So yeah, I think I really built something there that was needed.
So it shows that's indeed a very nice achievement that you have there, and something to indeed to be proud of. So I'm also happy that you can brag and you can be proud of that, because yeah, that's also it's interesting when I ask that question, can we be proud? A lot of people, well, some people have a hard time, and some people are just like you, like, no, I can, but most of them, like you say, we've learned it all along the way. So I think it's something that doesn't come natural to many of us, but still, we're doing it. Okay, let's move to that next question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share?
Personal agility. I spoke to Peter in who actually wrote a book on the subject. Where
Hmm.
was that? I think it was in Lithuania. But okay. My personal agility tip, and that's also has a little bit something to do with having a bit of a neurospicy brain, is I love bullet journaling. I've been bullet journaling for uh, 7 years now, I guess. And it is designed by someone who has a neurodiverse brain. And finally, it was a calendar that I could follow, because it's a to-do list and an agenda, and everything at once, and you can make your bullet journal fit your brain instead of the other way around. And
Hmm.
that was magic to me, that I finally had some planning or productivity system that worked with me instead of against me. So
Okay, and how
maybe
did you discover it?
I probably stumbled upon it on YouTube or something. I don't know. We all have this phase, I guess, that you that you dive into the rabbit hole of productivity tips and tricks and things, and then I stumbled upon this system, and I was like, oh. And I'm not like the bullet journaling type that makes pretty pages and things like that. It really looks just like it looks like this. It's not very
Mhm.
neat or anything.
So,
Or
and you do it on paper. You're not using a
absolutely,
yeah. And is there a
because
reason
paper
why you do
paper
it on
never
paper?
fails.
Paper never fails. That's a nice one. Yeah, like I said, my handwriting is really hard, so that doesn't. So my handwriting might make it fail, but it's not the paper, I would say. But it's, but
And
yeah,
I like to combine that with the 12-week year. So I don't make plannings for a whole year, but I make plannings for 12 weeks. But
and you
perceive it
said
as a year.
before also that you wanted you're doing review of the year. You said something like that in the beginning. Is that
The
done
year
also for
compass.
every? the year compass, is that then also for every 12 weeks, or is that for indeed the
No,
full
the
year?
year compass is for the full year, funnily enough.
Okay.
But I do that with a group of other people, and that makes it very cool to reflect with other people. You
Ah.
can do it by yourself. I think it's translated in I don't know how many languages. It's downloadable for free, and it's really amazing. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and it really lets you reflect on your year from different angles, and especially being in the agile scene, that's always we are all about inspect and adapt, right? Um, so yeah, so that's a yearly thing.
Thanks but it's a different thing than the 12 month
12-week
version.
year.
Sorry,
Yeah.
12 week. So how is the 12-week year? Why is that working for you? Do you know anything why that helps you differently than the 25 weeks?
uh 25, that sounds random.
No, that's what a year is. Sorry,
25 weeks.
52. Sorry.
Oh,
No, no, I
okay.
meant 52. Sorry. Oh, okay.
No, that's
Screwing me
okay.
up.
I was no, no, that's okay. I was
Yeah,
just
but that is my brain that is. I wanted to say 52. Yeah, counting in different languages.
I
That
get
doesn't
it.
help.
Yeah, that's the Dutch and the English colliding. I get that. I guess.
So, but
um,
the 12 weeks. 12 weeks.
it's well, it's actually also uh, uh, a little bit Scrum related, right? It's shorter cycles.
Hmm.
So and it also, if you look at a year in 12 weeks, you don't have that much time to waste. I don't follow the system very strictly because, well, I'm working on a presentation now called "Smile, You Are Dying," about toxic productivity. Uh, I'm uh, I'm in a little bit of a love-hate relationship with productivity gurus. Uh, because a lot of the so that's also what I have with the 12-week year. I like the idea of thinking in shorter cycles to achieve your goals and to achieve things that you want to achieve. Uh, but I don't want it to be too restricted because if I have a day off or my monthly cycle forces me to tea and chocolate and not doing anything else on a day, I want to embrace that and just don't feel guilty about my human biology, which most productivity gurus are men, and
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah,
most
but I think
productivity gurus don't think about female
the
cycles.
yeah, I've been. I think you gave a really great talk about the women's cycle at Ale, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong. Yeah, I think it's much more people should be aware. I've literally I read the Cycle Compass like a couple of months ago or weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I've been to. It was an interesting. I've been to a presentation about the women's cycle, where I was the only man, surprisingly. But well, actually, for me, it was a surprise, especially because indeed some of the women talked about it. Yeah, I wish, and some of the because at some point there was some group discussions, and it was like, yeah, I wish my partner knew more about this. It's like, yeah, but you don't bring him. Like, well, if you really
Well,
want them,
I gave this presentation at Hacker Hotel last year. 90% male in the audience.
Mhm,
The fun fact is the presentation that you're talking about is the timing in Teams.
mhm,
Uh, Approximately 55 minutes of this presentation is gender neutral. It's
mhm.
not talking about female cycles at all. And the last 5 minutes,
And
you
then
will see
people,
a
that's what
happy little
people
boom on
remember.
the screen saying, "Hey, I'm a happy little boom," and this is what happens within my monthly cycle, and this is, uh, and that's the thing that sticks to people, which is great,
But it's not the
because
only one.
it's
Not the only.
important. But the thing is that the biggest part of that presentation is about chronotypes of people. So morning versus evening people, and how you should take into account within a team that not everybody is the best at the same point of the day. So somehow we plan sessions within teams based on availability in calendars and not based on the best time of the day to do it. So why on earth's name would you do a brainstorm session right after lunch? We all know that's the worst part of the day to do a brainstorm session.
But I think it's also I've learned or I heard, I'm not even sure how scientific it is, but I've learned that the 9 to 5 was invented mostly by morning people,
Yeah,
which are not even making up 50% of the
yeah,
workplace. And so it's like, yeah, but we're all
yeah.
living to that, and we're all want it's like, yeah, yeah, no,
But
it's
that's the
not
same when you
true.
look at leadership.
Mhm,
Leadership or morning people, because mornings are glorified.
mhm,
Early bird gets the worm. I
mhm.
mean, we live in a society, at least in the West, where morning people are glorified.
Yeah.
So
Um,
they climb up the ladder easier and faster. So that's a so that a big part of the talk was about that. So that's actually a gender neutral thing, and then
mhm.
a little bit of
Is there
oops.
because I think well, what I've you know way more about it, but for me, one of the things I've learned from the Cycle Compass, well, it's a Dutch book, so I don't think that one is translated,
Mhm.
although there is an English version, another author that wrote something similar. But what I've learned from that is that men also have a cycle, except it's not a monthly, it's a daily, and we go through our cycle every day.
Yeah,
But indeed,
yeah.
very similar to what you say about, okay, the certain hours. I've been trying. So I have a role now as an engineering manager where I want to set up one-on-ones. And when I ask people about what's the perfect time, I've already had two people saying, "Well, I'm not a morning person, so better to do it later." And I was like, "Yeah, but maybe when you're not a morning person, let's have conversations in the morning while you're not at best to do coding type thing."
Active coding. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly, and just have conversations with me in that sense.
Yeah,
And of course, people might say, "I want to be at my best when I talk to my boss," which kind of I understand, but it's like, no, this is not where your productivity is. So, it's kind of interesting that people, yeah, I think it's important to think about different kind of things. And there might be people for who it's indeed different after lunch than others. Yeah, I think it's. I'm a night person, but indeed the business have taught me to get up earlier and be earlier at the
yeah.
office and things like that. But I do know that I get my best ideas much more in the evening, and so yeah, that's definitely a thing there.
But that's if you take that to the monthly cycle part. And when I teach students about creative entrepreneurship or other things, um, I tell the female students, and I'm generalizing women as well, right? Because not
Mhm.
everybody has the same cycle. Not everybody who identifies as woman has a cycle. So it's yeah, you have to see the nuance in that as well. Uh, and if you take anti-conception, that's also
There is no
another
cycle
a whole
anymore.
other story. But okay, um, um,
Yeah, but that's
I wish
I want to
I
wait.
wish.
I want to go a little bit
Oh,
into that part, if it's okay, because there is so many people that misunderstand that once indeed you take anti-conception or the pill, that your cycle is gone. It's just a fake cycle. So I think that is also important that people then realize that independent of if you think that hormones are good or bad, it means that it's a different thing and you kind of
yeah,
ignore nature and you and people are surprised. I think many I've seen at least women in my environment when they want to get pregnant and they stop with this, that yeah, everything changes in their life. Yeah, it's kind of normal because you discover maybe for the
your
first
hormone
time
levels
exactly.
fluctuate more. Absolutely.
And so
But
yeah,
I
sorry,
wish
I
someone.
interrupted.
No, that's okay. I wish somebody had told me when I was a teen at school that if you have hard conversations, if you have a job application, if you do a job, or if you have to do something that's important to you, try to, if you know your cycle and if you know when you ovulate, try to fix it then. If you have the ability, and the same goes with most of my administrative work I do pre-period, because I know that's the time where I'm not that creative and I'm not that energized and I'm not that uh, able to come up with crazy new workshop ideas, for instance. So I do my administration that time of month, and then when my happy time arrives, that's the time to uh, be a guest in podcast, for instance. Or figure out, or yeah, just come up with new creative ideas.
I really
There's
like that because it's the I've also heard about I've learned from a woman who's an entrepreneur herself who's like, okay, in my creative period I come up with all these ideas, but what she learned over the years that in that period she came up with all these ideas, but she planned them for later when she was in another part of her cycle, and she learned that this doesn't work because I have all these ideas, and then the moment I literally am out of energy or I'm not that creative, I have to do the work. It's like, no, I need to reschedule my agenda according to to my own cycle. And so what I heard from her is that in her agenda, and it's a public agenda with shared with her partner as well, where they can actually see, okay, this is where these things coming, and
yeah.
yeah. Um, and I think indeed, like you say, it's a shame that we don't teach children or young women a lot more about that.
But
I, I,
also
I
about menopause, right? There's so much knowledge not being shared enough or in the right way, I think.
in
Yeah.
Belgium, we had a minister who openly thought about being premenopause like a couple of months ago, and that boosted a lot of conversations around that. And even the Minister of Health is now talking with her, and because she felt like, what's happening? I'm a very active woman who's very, yeah. So she was in the prime of her life, or that's how she looked at that. She was at top of her career, and all of a sudden she had all these strange kind of things. And it took her a couple of years to realize, oh, this is actually premenopause, because indeed nobody talked about and nobody realized that
It's
what
misdiagnosed as depression a lot, for instance.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. So that's yeah, it's yeah, one of these things
so
that
yeah,
we
let's
should know more
normalize
as.
that. My main essence of that part of the presentation was, let's normalize the conversation about human biology. It's nothing to be
Yeah,
ashamed of. It's
it's
just
interesting. Just this
natural.
before I started this conversation, my daughter
Mhm.
went to the scouting. She came back like, I don't know, 10 minutes later to come pick up some pads, and my partner was like, "Why do you keep them in your hands while you're driving your bicycle?" It's like, yeah, why not? I mean, why be ashamed? It was not for her; it was for a friend. But even there, it's like, it's why not be openly that this is normal? We should, yeah. And I think she's at least that's what I hope, that she's way more open about it. She literally, the first day that she had her period the first time, she almost jumped onto me when I came home, being so happy. Okay, probably
Really,
didn't realize how much problems that would give later, but the fact that she as a 12-year-old could openly talk with her father about it, I was like, okay, at least some
hmm.
parts of my education or
How
my
old is she
raising my
now,
children.
Eve?
16. She's 16
Oh,
now, and
cool.
she's been very open, talking with it with her friends, with even with her older brothers about it. The first few years or the first few months, more like it's like, yeah, okay, I would still know, but her brothers might not have known. But I think now everybody knows it. I think it's so much more natural to talk openly about it. And no,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it even just ordering, also the moment I order food or other things, is like, okay, could you just give me some, yeah, whatever that she needs from female products?
Yeah.
That's just in the chat with everything else. There's no secrets about it. Compare that to my mother when she learned that she had the first time that she was losing blood. She literally thought she was dying because nobody had taught her. And her
Same with my
mother
mom. Yeah.
reaction was her reaction of her mother was like, "Yeah, you're now a grown girl, and that's it." She no, you're now a grown woman. That was it. And she gave no explanation or anything. She just gave them, yeah, some things to deal with it, to
My
practice it.
grandma
That's it.
added, and watch boys right now because otherwise you will get a baby. What? That was it. That was it.
That's come on. That's yeah. It's
Aw.
yeah. I hope. Well, I think we've moved. At least in my family, we're very far away. We can openly talk about it.
Yes.
And I think my children are something like that. Do you really have to bring this up or talk about it? But I think it's important that people feel that they can openly come to their parents to talk about this. And of course, I don't need to know um,
Every
the
detail.
details of their sex life and everything of that. That's okay. But they do. I hope that they do know if they run into trouble that they can talk to us, yeah, and everything. I think that's we should be way more normalized and normalizing when, yeah, when people have their periods and they have a hard time talking about it, or having, yeah, if you have a hard time at work or whatever that, yeah, people have, yeah. um and
There
I
was this
remember
guy
one.
in the audience. Oh, I'm sorry. There was
No,
this
go
guy
ahead.
in the audience at the Scrum Facilitators. I premiered this talk there in 2022, and this guy came up to me and said, "Nancy, I'm almost embarrassed to admit I have 3 daughters and a wife, and I have never ever take this into consideration with my female colleagues at work. I never thought about it." And I said, "I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm so happy that you pointed it out. I mean, this was something for home, my wife and my daughters, but I have female coworkers."
Mhm.
So I was okay. So I was happy because at least I woke this guy up. Like, oh my goodness, of course, yeah. So that's very cool. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I think, and we need to get into a way, and of course, it should be a safe environment where people are not punished for bringing that up, and like, okay, because I
Of
think
course,
the work world is sometimes so masochistic that even if you have a bad day, woman or man, that we shouldn't talk about it. Yeah, you have to just, yeah, you have to be professional. So sorry, if I have a bad day, I will tell my colleagues because I know that I wouldn't say misbehave, but I will be shorter in answers. I will be like, okay, so I'm trying to tell them, like, okay, I didn't have a good night's sleep, or I've even told them, like, okay, just this morning I had a large discussion with my partner. I still feel bad about it. And okay, so yeah, just that you know that this is happening, this is in my mind. I think this is so normal or for me, it's normal. I think it's important to do, but sometimes people are really shocked because it's not that normal in their world, I would say.
yeah,
So so we talked
yeah.
about a lot more personal than the just personal agility thing, but I think it's really important then. Let's move to that next question about remote work. And so I think a lot of us, we discovered remote work when COVID hit. Did you do some remote work before?
Not that much. No. Uh,
And how was it then for you to all of a sudden live in a world where you were kind of forced? Because you already talked, you prefer to do games in person and things like that. So all of a sudden, you as a person kind of forced to do stuff from home and work remote. How did that work, that shift for you?
well, it's uh it was a little bit double because yes, I missed my crowd and my sports and my because these are the things that are really important to me. Uh, on the other hand, my boyfriend has been working for remote companies for over 12 years already. So he was like, "What's
Mm.
the buzz all about?" Uh, um,
And you had all
and
the
what it
equipment at home.
what it is, I bought everything. I bought like the nice microphone and the can I show it? The Rode microphone. I bought all the nice shit, and I just perceived it as learning a new skill, mainly playing online. How can I use the games that I use online? So I started experimenting like crazy with all my playful community friends. Okay, so
Mm.
how can we make this work online? How can we make this work online? And then I realized that I was working for a big coffee company as an HR coach for a while. And I could do very cool stuff online with 60 people at the same time on one whiteboard uh, from all over the globe. And I was like, but this is not possible in the physical world.
Physically.
So, uh, and there was one day that I was doing a gamification workshop for India, and then later in the day for the Nederlandse Antillen, Aruba, in one day with two teams. And I was like, this is so cool. So it also opened up my mind a little bit about what you can do remote. So I hated the fact that I didn't have my crowds, but I love the fact that, I mean, I wouldn't have realized before Corona, I think, that I could have this podcast interview with you
Mhm.
uh, this easily. Uh,
Wow.
it widened my world very quickly, and it was my reach was also uh, very expanding very quickly, because I was doing webinars and presentations at events all over the world, just from my office in Hover.
So that's really nice that yeah that you learned it, and I think it comes back indeed to what you said in the beginning. It's like hacking, and all of a sudden the situation is what it is, and I am yeah I'm yeah, of course it's not really scientific, but I have the feeling that a lot of agilists and people who are in kind of that hacking mindset and everything
Hmm.
a much easier time with making that that shift, because for us it's like, okay, this is we accept that reality change all the time, so this is a new reality, let's kind of deal with it and find a way around it. And a lot of other people like, yeah, but I don't like the reality. And it's like, no, nobody, it doesn't mean that you like the reality, neither did I, but still it's like, how can we make the best of it? And like you say, hey, now all of a sudden your audience has grown, and it allows you to work from multiple countries in the same day.
Yeah,
So, so let's, is there a tip that you can give to people?
about remote working.
Exactly.
Uh, don't forget to play. Of course, that's a bit of an open door coming from me.
Hmm.
Uh, but in the physical world, we tend to first have a little chat and then start a conversation. Uh, Please add some playfulness to your online meetings as well, because it will truly improve your work and your
I really
innovation
like that.
power.
It's yeah,
Um,
I see it indeed when for example, and that's at a smaller scale than what you mean, I think. But when we do, when we have physical meetings, well, nobody's arriving on time, so there is. And while we're there, we have some kind of chit chat. Remote, it's worse. People arrive even later, but we don't talk until the meeting starts. We don't talk, and we don't use it to chit chat. And it's like, no, and I try to do that, and I've noticed how hard it is. That people like, yeah, should we
it was
talk
the one
about?
of the first things I did. I worked with a team uh, which created the Corona apps at the Ministry of Healthcare, actually,
Mhm.
last year. That was my last gig as a HR coach. And these are all true hackers, because they called me because they know me from the hacker events, and they were like, "Oh, we need Nancy here to get some structure within our teams, because the big crisis is over and now we need some." But we had our bi-weekly review and a sort of weekly stand-up with all kinds of different teams. And before I was there, it was like, okay, everybody was sitting waiting to for 60 people to show up in the online meeting. Yeah, let's wait a couple of more minutes, people. Always the same, right? Yeah, let's just wait a
Mm.
couple of minutes so that everybody's there. Uh, so the first thing I did was putting crazy questions in there. Okay, so everybody, tell me in the chat, what are you wearing on your feet today, and what does it tell you? Tell me about you. And instantly, and I started doing this, and people started talking, and I just started asking questions like that, and it was so much fun that people started showing up earlier because they wanted to know what's Nancy's question of the week. So that was also a nice behavioral nudge to get people to show up in time, and to have more interesting conversations. Also, what was your very first job, and what are you still what learnings do you take from that today in your work today? It's very cool to hear people talking about these kinds of things.
I really like that. Indeed, well, I'm just thinking about what are you wearing on your feet. It's like, yeah, that's because remote. We have no idea. We have no idea how long people are, how tall people are, and when indeed
Yeah,
everything below waistline. People, okay, it might be embarrassing if you're wearing nothing or something, but
not on your
yeah,
feet, that's okay. People go
but on your
barefoot all
feet,
the time.
exactly. So I was
It's
like, yeah,
very safe.
that's yeah, and it's but it's a safe way, but yeah, it really depends. I think also a little bit of culture, because I remember that I once asked to a group, but that was a physical group. I once asked to create some playfulness, indeed, that the stand-up was asked, okay, just for what was the very first CD that you bought, and people refused to answer. It's like, whoa, okay, and you can even lie, you can say anything, and people find it, no, it's too personal, I don't want to talk about it. It's like, okay, it's yeah. So sometimes playfulness, people need to find ways and how to allow it, and to have that kind of things.
Yeah, it's a
So,
cultural. I play this game. I learned from Corey at Play 14 Hamburg, I think. That's called Find Your Soulmate, which I love if you want to split up groups into pairs. Um, I always ask them, okay, please in this group find your soulmate. Who is your soulmate? The soulmate is the person who has the similar shoe sole as you.
hmm,
Now you have to. So you see people walking around with their feet up, what is your shoe sole? What does your sole look like? And then you can make it. It also works in Dutch, by the way. So soulmate.
cool,
Uh,
cool.
find someone with the same soul. And it's really funny because you tend to hustle, like or to how do you say it, to mix up a group better in better ways than just say make two pairs, make pairs.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, it's
The
anything
thing
that
is, there are countries in the world where it's very, very rude to show the sole of your foot to someone
feet,
because it's very.
exactly.
So that's also something that you shouldn't play in each and every culture.
Yeah, and I think that's something indeed to recognize what is what are possible things. And then
I
again, we
see,
talked
I
about
see, I see the
failing.
culture map behind you, so people can read that book.
That one.
That one. People can read that book to learn more
That's
about that.
that's one
Yeah.
of the great books, and I'm thinking about that's another one. For people who've been on the show as well, adopting agile across borders. That's another
Cool.
one that's interesting.
Yeah.
And there is even more. There was actually the first one that I learned about different cultures was from a Dutch guy. I can't come up with the name anymore. It was a very old book about cultures. It was not as much. Well, I don't know. I've learned more from the culture map than from that one, but that was also but about cultures. Um, can't come up with the name, but I'll try to add it to the show notes as well. Okay, we already started talking about books. What is a book that you have read that you wanted to talk about?
This was one of the hardest questions, I think, Eve, because I love so many books. So it's appreciation. Well, one of the books that I really liked lately was Essentialism and
I think
Effortless.
that's the one, right?
That is
Essentialism.
absolutely the one. Yeah. It and
And
it
so,
and-
why did you like the book, or what did you like about that book?
well, first off, he has a whole chapter about play.
Mhm.
And how important it is to play and to keep playing as an adult. So I was like, yay! Very good. More people talk, spreading the word of playfulness. Uh, but also the whole idea that your life is finite. And another cool book on that subject is 4,000 Weeks. But your life is finite, and if you don't uh, make choices in your life, someone else will. And that was
Wow,
something that uh, we tend to have the idea that we can do everything, but that's not true. We are finite. This life will end, and you should embrace the fact that you cannot do everything you want. It's the
that's
joy
an
of missing
interesting
out.
story. The joy of missing out. I was about to think about that kind of thing as well. Like, okay,
Yeah,
it means that, yeah, yeah. But the fact that you say just the one the thing that you said about some people will make decisions for you, how is that, and while we're doing this, I can actually already show, I think this is the book about the 4,000 weeks.
yeah,
Is that the one?
yes, yes.
So what did you learn about from, so when you said, sorry, no, the what you said about if you're not making the choices, someone else will make it for you. Could you go a little bit deeper on that one?
Yeah, it's um you see those people juggling around with everything in their life, and if you truly want to focus on the things that you love best, if you ask people to, I did an exercise at your Decanas, I think. Okay, so first off, make a list of all the things that make you happy and all the things that cost you a lot of energy, and
Mm.
then make a list of the last work week you had and how many things did you do from the left side of the list and the right side of the list,
Mm.
and what are the choices you made yourself or someone else make that choice for you. And
Right.
I think it's very valuable to every once in a while check your own life, and if making music makes you happy or being with your partner makes you happy, or uh, am I doing enough of this, um, is a very good question to ask yourself. And who's in charge of that?
I really like that. It reminds me of an exercise I've learned from Stephen Covey, from his book, the
Seven habits.
the seven habits, indeed, of effective people. And well, one of the I've been to a couple of his trainings and workshops, and one of them was indeed where he shows the rocks, and there is a very cool video on YouTube. I will link to it, but I do know that it sometimes disappears and then it appears again somewhere else. So that the link might not keep working. But the interesting part is he shows people like, okay, there's already some things in a jar, and then you try to add the things that you want to do. And then, of course, it doesn't work because it's already full. And it's the opposite. If you first fill the jar with the
Golf
things you want
balls.
to do, and then you can let everything else fill in. And I find it so important because it's what the exercise that he wants us to do is like look at your roles, the different roles you have in your life. And one of them is indeed learning, so the playfulness and the learning part. There is you're probably a partner, you're a parent, you're a child, you're, I don't know, so in my case, I'm a business owner. I also have a podcast, so there's multiple of these roles. And then indeed look at your agenda, like how much of the time is done for these different kind of roles, and is that indeed the kind of time you want to do. And it's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast today, because I my children are 21, 18, and or 19 and 16. So there's only going to be a couple of years that they're still living in the house. So I'm like, this time I keep want to connect to the agile or community, but I don't want to leave my house as much as possible. So okay, I'm doing this and recording on a Saturday while my children are off to scouting, and yeah, before come back, I will be this will be finished and probably already prepared something for the next one to go live. So that allows me indeed to look at where do I want to spend my time. If I wanted to meet you in person, I would have to drive somewhere else, or spend a week at the conference or something like that, which I love, which I learn also a lot. But it's at this point in my life, it's like, no, that's not the time I want to invest, because I want to spend much more time at home. And it's really like you say, you need to consciously think about it, because otherwise that will be, yeah, that will happen.
Yeah.
And I will miss things out, because, like I said, I didn't go to play for 14. I didn't go to a lot of other things, and sometimes I regret. But in most cases, like, yeah, I regret never being there. But I know that there were other things on my agenda that for right now is more important on some of these things. So thanks for sharing that. I think these are interesting books to read. Definitely, the first one I did know, the Essentialism, and the Effortless. That's the second book that I think the same author wrote. But the 4,000 Weeks, I've never heard about it, and I think this is definitely a concept to think about. So
Really
thank you
cool.
for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go to well, one of the, for me, after, well, we've been talking for a while, but this moment is really something that I find really interesting, especially with someone like you. Like, what question do you think I should also ask? Because we already went in all kinds of directions. Is there still something that you want me to ask you? And what's the answer?
Yes. Do you want to play a game?
Hmm? Right now, play a game?
Yes.
Let's do
This
this.
was this one was given it because I was like, oh, what? I thought this was a hard question, and then I was like, a couple of years back, I was speaker at DevOps Days Amsterdam, and there was a guy there from who was a DevRel at Google, and we had a speaker dinner the night before, and I was there, and I said, "You gamify absolutely freaking everything. I'm convinced of that." I did a talk about sexual harassment a couple of weeks back, and I even gamified that presentation.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. In the hacker scene, you have capture the flags. You know that concept.
Mhm. I
Uh,
think I do.
yeah, that's puzzles you have to solve while hacking, and they have all kinds of competitions for that. It's called Capture the Flag. Really, really funny. So I made a game called Capture the Red Flag. Uh,
Wow.
so
And we
yeah.
can play it in just online in just a
No, we're
couple of
not going
minutes.
to play that one.
Ah, damn it.
We're going to play because this guy asked me during that conversation when I make the very bold statement, you can gamify absolutely everything. He said, gamify this dinner.
Wow.
And then I pulled out this from outside my bag. Let me see. It's
Big
Big
talk.
Talk.
Yeah.
Big Talk is the opposite of small talk.
Hmm.
So what I want to play with you right now is I'm going to shovel the cards, and then you say stop, and then I'm going to ask you the question that's on the card, and you can
Wow.
either answer it or pass it to me.
Okay, let's do this. Okay, let's. So you tell me when you did you already start shuffling, or?
I'm shuffling. I'm shuffling.
Okay, okay. 1, 2, 3, 7, go. Stop.
Okay. The big talk question is, what do you miss?
What do I miss? Wow, that's indeed some deep things. Um, Well, I just said that I'm not going, or going less to conferences these days, physical conferences. So I do miss my friends at these conferences. I'm trying with the podcast to keep in touch to some people, but of course I miss the late night conversations with people. I don't drink alcohol, so it's not for getting drunk and getting hangover. But I'm typically one of the last to leave the bar, because I just like these conversations, and that can go. This is a similar kind of conversation that goes in all kind of directions, but at the conference and the bar, it's with multiple people, and then just when you think, oh, I'm going to ask this person a question, somebody else asks a completely different question, And sometimes it's frustrating because I thought, oh, I want to talk about this, but usually I learn so much about other people, both serious and not serious. So that's what I miss most about physical conferences, I would say.
Beautiful.
Thank
Do
you
you
for
want
that
to have
question.
do you want me to have a new one, or do you want me to answer the same?
I think this is from something I would like to hear from you as well.
Hmm. This is to me, it's a very easy one. It's my dad.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I think he would be so very proud. He is probably very proud. If you ask my sister, he is proud, and if you ask me, I would say he probably would have been very proud.
Right.
We also have a cool
Because
brother, by the way. Before I forget him, yeah.
because of course this will get out, and then your brother will be like, "Why didn't you talk about me?"
Why are you so? Hmm.
Well, you should start working with your sister, and then she will talk more about you. I can imagine that there's still roles for your brother at the conferences and everything that you organize, so he can definitely help out if he wants
He's
that.
going to do the shuttle bus from the station to the location this year.
Wow! So that's so you really bring the whole family in that and make it a fun thing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
sometimes people don't go ahead.
no, go ahead. So if you ask the question, can you gamify everything? I even gamified this podcast.
I think that's indeed something that yeah, we can gamify everything indeed, and try to yeah, in multiple ways learn it. And I think the fact that it's unpredictable what's coming out. Of course, you could already taken the card out and you can fool me. That's also possible. I
No, I
don't know,
didn't.
but I think,
No.
but I did. That's what I wanted to say. I do trust that that's not happening. And I think that's, for me, is what gamification is about. Is like, we kind of stimulate to have a positive outcome, and yeah, trigger people into all kind of things, but it could go in all kind of directions. So I really
And
like that.
also inflict some serendipity, right?
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah,
that's also a
the
thing
fact
that I really like. Yeah,
yeah, and
because
I've
I bring
actually,
these almost everywhere, and it's has amazing effects on people, and interesting talks. And I brought a couple of boxes and spread them around at Agile Lean Toulouse last year. Uh, no, that was the year before. And then last year, someone put on the feedback wall, Nancy, did you bring Big Talk again?
well,
So I was like, wow.
I've been looking at the box there. It's a little bit too complicated to get it out, but I have a large plastic box with lots of cards with different kind of questions from, and it
Love
could be
it.
statements from. I think there's like 10 cards from. I can't come up with. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. There's multiple kind of cards that I have from multiple kind of people, and just randomly ask people, indeed, pick a card and some of our statements. Someone's like, okay, this is something to think about for this week, or this is something to have a discussion with. And I really like that, because indeed, especially in Agile, there is a lot of practices, a lot of ideas, but we sometimes forget about them. And if you just randomly shuffle them and let people take one of them and everybody another one, people will focus on other things, but it will help us to get better and focus on certain things. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think cards are really good for doing that kind of thing. Okay, I want to move to that actually last question. Who do you think I should ask next? And I think you have a couple of people you wanted to talk about,
Yeah, one of the people is Dov Tsal. I don't know if you
and I
know
think
him.
that's him. Yeah, I do know him. He's. I need to think about what I've organized a coach camp. No, not coach camp. Oh, I can't come up with the own name. Um, oh, this is embarrassing.
An
I
agile
did.
events.
Yeah, it's an agile one day event that I created with Luana. Junku
Ah.
about coaching, a coach retreat. That's the word I'm looking for. And so it's one day where we let people practice with some kind of coaching techniques on fake things. And I think Dov was one of the people that joined me at one of these
Mm.
events, and I think he even co-organized at least one or two of them. And I think we run into each other from time to time. So I'm really happy to to have an excuse to talk again with him. So that's definitely something, someone that I'm really looking forward to meet again. So thanks for bringing him up.
Yeah. Any other two people, and you can either talk to them separately, which is great fun, or talk with them together, which is also great fun. Sylvia and Suzanne Taylor, uh,
And
the
they are
the
here.
agile twins. I don't
And
know
I
if you
was
can
about
say
to
that.
say, and you can see that they're twins. And I've, yeah, oops, let's bring you on screen again. Um, Indeed, that these are really wonderful women. I've met Sylvia years ago when I was doing a core protocol boot camp in Seattle with Jim and Michelle McCarthy, and she was one of the people that joined in as co-facilitators. And then I met her again when she came to join her sister in Germany, and then it was wonderful at some of the ale events that we were in. I think the first time, I don't know, I think the first time they were there was in Barcelona, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's been wonderful seeing them again, and it's really nice to see, although they were both apart from different parts of the world, that their careers have moved in similar kind of directions, and that then when you now see how they collaborate and work together. It's I do indeed sometimes have a couple of duo podcasts, which is another kind of diversity. We can talk about men and women, but having a duo there, and sometimes these are couples, sometimes these are business partners, and and this might be indeed another fun, because I don't think I've had twins on the show yet, so that's another way, a fun
or
way.
or maybe
And
not, because they've been together for even longer than they're alive. Yeah. Or
well, that's
I don't
well
know.
because Suzanne has been living a couple of years in Germany. That's not technically true. They were at some point separated. Well, separated. I think they were
Yeah.
still in touch a lot, but that's something for them to discuss. So I will
Yeah.
indeed check with them what they want to do. And I think you had one last person that you were thinking about bringing up,
Oh yeah.
um, but
And then I scrolled back through your podcast and figured out that you already had Vasco Duarte on your show, which I really, really love. And I've been a
exactly.
guest.
And
Yeah.
the 62 edition. And yeah, Vasco and me, we go back a long time. We have lots of collaborations together. He helped with, there is an audio version of the tips from the agile trenches that I did together with Vasco, where we interviewed all the, well, not all, but a lot of the authors that wrote the tip. Was really fun. We still have a couple of authors left, so we should pick up that part.
Reunite.
Yeah, we invited also. Well, I was invited multiple times on his own podcast, and we have multiple collaborators. So yeah, I really like Vasco a lot. Actually, met him like less than a month ago in Germany, where we
Cool.
where we're both. That's the first actually physical event I've done since Corona outside Belgium. That was just a month ago, or something like that. So, like I said, I'm trying to minimize it, but I was invited to München to do a workshop on psychological safety, and it was really fun to indeed do
Cool.
do that and yeah, meet again with Vasco. And like I said, these were late night conversations at the bar. So
Yeah. I can't imagine.
so, Nancy, it's been really fun. We're talking for, I think, a little bit over 2 hours. If people want to talk with you, what is a good way to connect with you?
Um, I most of the things that I share on LinkedIn. So if
Mhm.
you search on LinkedIn, my name Nancy Beers,
And that's the link,
there's the
and it
link.
will be added
Awesome.
to the
That's
show
my
notes as
main
well.
point of contact, basically. If you want to learn more about me or working with me, or hire me for a keynote talk, or hire me for a presentation or something, you can head over to my website, happygamechangers.com.
And that should be the one.
Yes, absolutely. And there you can find the link to my Spotify channel with all my podcast interviews, and I will gladly add yours to that, Eve. So
Really looking forward to
if
well,
people want to
listening
listen
and
to 9.5 hours of Nancy, they can.
that's but well, we well, it's been a long time that we've been talking, but we had possibility to talk until 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. I
Next
thought that
morning, yeah, yeah.
that was so. I think we wrapped
But I
it up
do need some
in less
food
time.
somewhere.
Yeah, I see that my partner has returned home already and are probably going like half an hour eat something as well. It's been a wonderful time. As it was as much fun as was I expecting. Had lots of laughs and lots of really both deep and funny stories at the same time. And I think that's how I like it. I mean, this is the goal is to learn more about people, but not always too serious. And it's indeed some of the conversations, some of the topics were very deep, but at the same time we done it with lot of laughter and yeah, which I yeah with the fun part. And I think this is yeah, like you say, happy game changing. That's what you want to do, and that is also how this conversation felt. So thank you very much for your time.
That's a lovely compliment. Thank you. And I really enjoyed myself talking with you this afternoon. And have a great rest of the weekend.
Same to you. Bye bye. Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of Agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other Agilists.